Imagine, if you will, a scholar in a candlelit room, parchment spread before him, ink trembling at the tip of his quill. It is the 2nd century BC, and he is trying to list the most astonishing things the world has ever seen. The sea outside smells of salt and distance. The air inside smells faintly of oil, dust, and ambition. He doesn't know it yet, but his idle act of categorizing beauty will outlive empires. He calls them, theomata, things to be seen. 7, because 7 feels complete. 7, because the stars themselves were counted that way. The pyramids of Egypt, the hanging gardens of Babylon, the statue of Zeus, the temple of Artemis, the mausoleum at Halicarnassus, the Colossus of Rhodes, and the lighthouse of Alexandria. 7 little notes in the symphony of human imagination. What he could not imagine, as his candle burned low, was that someday, each of these wonders would vanish. The world would crumble around them, stone by stone, dream by dream, until they became names spoken by people who'd never seen them, stories half remembered, like something glimpsed in a dream before waking. But tonight, as you breathe quietly in your bed, we'll visit them together. Slowly. Gently. We'll walk where their shadows still linger, feel the sand beneath our feet, and listen for the heartbeat of vanished marvels. And we begin, as all stories of endurance do, in the desert, beneath the gaze of a creature made not of flesh, but of limestone and eternity. The air in Egypt is different. It has weight, even in memory. The kind of air that seems to hum, like it's alive with heat and history. Picture the horizon at dawn, the first light brushing the golden sand, and there, cutting through the haze, the silhouette of the Great Pyramid. It is the oldest of the 7 wonders, and the only one still standing. Built around 2560 BC for Pharaoh Khufu, it has survived 4,000 years of wind, war, and wonder. Every other marvel has fallen to fire or time, but this one remains, calm, enormous, unbothered, as if time itself decided to bow and pass politely around it. Let's walk closer. Imagine the crunch of sand beneath your feet, the sound soft, rhythmic, hypnotic. The pyramid grows larger until it fills your view, its edges sharp as thought, its stones glowing faintly in the rising light. Some of them weigh more than 50 tons. And yet they rest here, perfectly balanced, like a cathedral built for the gods of geometry. No one truly knows how it was built. There are theories, of course, ramps, levers, clever systems of pulleys and manpower. But when you stand before it, it feels less like an engineering project and more like an act of faith carved in stone. The workers who built it, tens of thousands of them, weren't slaves as was once thought, but laborers, farmers working through the flood season when their fields were underwater. They were paid in bread and beer, and their graffiti still lingers on the blocks, little jokes, team names, nicknames for their overseers. You can almost hear them laughing as they worked, a reminder that even eternity was built by ordinary hands. As centuries passed, the pyramid became less a tomb and more a question. Kings looted it, priests blessed it, Napoleon supposedly stood in its shadow and whispered to his officers. From the heights of these pyramids, 40 centuries look down upon us. And yet, what has really survived here is not Khufu, nor gold, nor bones, but a feeling. That small, impossible ache humans have to leave something behind. Something too heavy for time to carry away. As night falls again over Giza, the stars wheel above in silence. The same constellations the builders watched now shimmer faintly above your ceiling. Somewhere between them and the sand, the pyramid keeps its quiet vigil, a mountain that remembers. And so, with the dust still on our sandals and the echo of wind in our ears, we'll turn east, toward a city that once bloomed from the desert like a dream. Babylon awaits us. If the Great Pyramid was built to touch the stars, then the hanging gardens were made to invite them down to earth. Let's step carefully now through time's shimmering veil, into the warm, perfumed air of Babylon. You can almost hear the hum of cicadas and the rush of the Euphrates nearby. The year, as far as any historian can guess, might be around 600 BC. The sand has been tamed here. The world smells of damp clay and fig leaves. Babylon rises from the desert like a mirage, walls glazed with blue tiles and golden lions, towers spiraling toward the sky. And somewhere within this vast maze of brick and brilliance, the hanging gardens once swayed like a floating paradise. No one knows quite where they were. No ruins, no broken pillars, no pools remain. Some whisper they were never real at all, just poetry mistaken for history. But I like to believe they lived, because every age deserves at least one impossible thing that turned out to be true. According to legend, they were built by King Nebuchadnezzar II for his queen, Amytis, who missed her green homeland of Media. Babylon was flat, dry, shimmering with heat. So the king, either out of love, pride, or boredom, commanded that an artificial mountain be built, filled with trees and waterfalls, so that Amytis might feel at home. Imagine it, terraces rising high above the city, lush with palms, vines, and flowers dripping with color. Water flowing from tier to tier, drawn upward by hidden pumps. The air cool and fragrant even in the desert heat. Birds nesting in branches that never should have grown here. It was an oasis built not by nature but by longing. And that, perhaps, is why it faded. The Euphrates changed course, the walls crumbled, the desert came back for its own. Some say an earthquake took the gardens, others think they were in Nineveh all along, misremembered by travelers. But I think they vanished the way dreams do, into morning. Still, when you walk through modern Iraq, through the wind and sand, there's a sense that something once bloomed there. A ghost of green in the golden dust. And that's all any wonder really leaves behind, a feeling that the world was, once, impossibly more alive. The hanging gardens drift away now, like petals on the river. Ahead, faintly, comes the sound of distant laughter, of games, of prayers. It smells of olive oil and fresh cut wood. Let us go there, to a place where gods once smiled upon men carved in marble and gold. The year is 435 BC. We are in Olympia, Greece, a place of warm wind and olive groves, of racing feet and shining sweat, where the air itself seems to hum with pride. And at the heart of it all, in a great temple that smells of cedar and beeswax, sits a god. Zeus. Not the lightning-hurling titan of myth, but his most human image, sculpted by the master artist Phidias, seated upon a throne of ivory and gold. He is 40 feet tall, crowned with olive leaves, his face calm and distant as though he's listening to a song no mortal can hear. In one hand, he holds a statue of Nike, the goddess of victory. In the other, a scepter topped with an eagle. The temple is quiet except for the rustle of oil lamps. The floor reflects the god's face in rippled gold light. Outside, the cheers of the Olympic Games fade into the hum of cicadas. To the Greeks, standing before Zeus was not just an act of worship, it was an encounter with perfection. Visitors said the statue was so beautiful, they feared it might come alive. Others said they saw the god smile when lightning flashed through the open roof. But beauty, like all divine things, doesn't last. Centuries later, Rome rose and the Greek temples dimmed. The statue was moved, perhaps to Constantinople. The records blur. Some say it was burned in a great fire, the ivory curling, the gold melting into rivers of light. Others believe it was lost at sea, the waves swallowing its throne and crown. Either way, the god returned to silence. But his memory remained. The calm expression of Zeus inspired artists for centuries. Even Michelangelo, when carving his David, whispered that he had sought that same serenity, an echo of Phidias's long-vanished face. Now, if you listen closely, you can almost hear it, the faint creak of the temple's wooden doors, the sigh of a forgotten hymn, the quiet dignity of a god who once watched over humankind and then, gently, withdrew. The oil lamps fade. The air cools. And beyond the horizon, faintly glowing, lies the next wonder, the Temple of Artemis, a forest of marble where nightingales sing and moonlight rests upon columns like silver dust. Let us go there next, with unhurried steps, before sleep takes us fully into history's arms. The road to Ephesus smells of thyme, olive wood, and the sea. The crickets sing in steady rhythm as the night folds around us. We are in Ionia now, Western Asia Minor, around 550 BCE. And there, rising above the plain like a white dream, stands the Temple of Artemis. It is enormous. 4 times the size of the Parthenon, its marble pillars glimmer pale under the stars. To approach it is to feel small, but not afraid, only awed, as though walking into the moon's own house. Artemis, the huntress, the protector of women, the goddess of the wild, had many temples, but none like this. Built by the architect Chersiphron and his son, it stood upon a marsh to resist earthquakes. The columns rose so high they seemed to hold the sky. Sculptures of Amazonian warriors and lions lined the steps. The scent of burning incense and laurel leaves drifted through its open halls. Pilgrims came from across the ancient world, Persia, Greece, Lydia, and beyond, bringing gold, silks, and carved ivory as offerings. The temple was both sanctuary and treasury, where merchants stored their wealth under the goddess's protection. But one night, a man named Herostratus changed everything. It was 356 BC, the very night Alexander the Great was born. The torches flickered low as Herostratus crept inside. He had no wealth, no power, no lineage. What he wanted was immortality. So he set the temple on fire. The dry cedar beams roared, the marble cracked in the heat, and the goddess's home turned to ash. When asked why, he simply said, "So that my name would never be forgotten." And it worked. The irony of history is cruelly consistent. The city rebuilt it, grander than before, this time with sculpted Amazons and even taller columns. Travelers said it shimmered like frost under sunlight. But when the Goths raided Ephesus in 262 CE, they sacked the temple again. Earthquakes and floods did the rest. Now, only one solitary column stands amid reeds and frogs. The goddess has long since gone to hunt elsewhere. But if you visit on a still evening, when the wind carries the scent of olive trees and the river murmurs softly nearby, you can almost see the reflection of the temple in the air, a ghostly forest of marble and light. And as that mirage fades, you notice something new on the horizon, a square monument rising above the sea, its walls gleaming white under the sun. It belongs not to a god, but to a man, a king who built his own eternity. Let us drift there now, across the Aegean, where the mausoleum awaits. The morning comes gently to Halicarnassus, carried on sea salt and gull cries. Waves roll lazily against the harbor walls. The sun catches the marble cliffs, and for a moment, the world feels bright, timeless, and impossibly clean. Here, in the 4th century BC, ruled King Mausolus and his queen, and sister, Artemisia too. They were Lydian by blood, Greek by culture, and ambitious beyond measure. When Mausolus died, Artemisia decided that grief should be eternal. She summoned the finest architects and sculptors from across Greece, Scopas, Bryaxis, Leocares, and Timotheus. Together they built not just a tomb, but a statement, a mountain of stone and myth so extraordinary that Mausolus's name would forever define the very word mausoleum. Imagine it rising from the cliffs, a vast rectangular base surrounded by friezes depicting battles and triumphs, a colonnade of Ionic columns above it, and at the top, a pyramid crowned by a chariot of marble horses, Mausolus and Artemisia riding toward the heavens. The air around it smelled of plaster and cedar dust. The sound of chisels echoed day after day. Sailors entering the harbor saw the monument first, gleaming white against the blue sea, a king who had turned memory into architecture. Artemisia didn't live long after its completion. Some say she drank his ashes in wine, believing love could be swallowed whole. Others say she simply faded, her heart too tired of grandeur. But her devotion made their resting place a wonder of the world. For centuries, the mausoleum stood tall, until time and men came for it. Earthquakes cracked its base. Crusaders from the Knights of St. John dismantled its marble to fortify their castle and Bodrum. Today, fragments of its friezes rest quietly in the British Museum, where their carved horses and warriors seem to gallop still, frozen mid-motion. The rest lies beneath the Turkish soil, hidden but not lost. When the wind blows through the ruins at dusk, it sounds almost like the sigh of stone remembering what it once was. A monument to love, ambition, and the human refusal to accept oblivion. And yet, for all their grandeur, both Mausolus and Artemisia could not outlast the sea or the trembling earth. Still, their dream whispers to us that memory, carved deeply enough, may endure longer than flesh. From Halicarnassus, the tide carries us south and west again, to a lighthouse so tall it once guided all the world's ships, and whose fall marked the fading of the ancient age. Let's drift there next, to Alexandria, where flame and marble met the endless sea. The sea smells of salt and cedar. The waves, though gentle, carry the deep rhythm of eternity. And there, rising above the horizon like a dream, is the island of Pharos. Upon it, gleaming in marble white and bronze gold, stands the lighthouse of Alexandria. It is the 3rd century BC. The city itself is young but already magnificent, a jewel of Alexander the Great's empire, where Greeks, Egyptians, and scholars from 100 lands walk beneath the same sun. The air is heavy with the scent of papyrus ink and warm bread. Traders shout in a dozen languages, and the sea glitters like a god's mirror. But nothing commands the eye like the lighthouse. At nearly 400 feet tall, it is the tallest building in the known world. Built by Sostratus of Cnidus for Ptolemy II Philadelphus, it was not just a structure, it was a symbol. The Greeks called it a pharos, after the island itself, and soon the word would mean lighthouse, everywhere. 3 tiers of perfect geometry rose toward the heavens, a square base, an octagonal middle, and a cylindrical top crowned by a statue of Poseidon. Within, ramps spiraled upward for horses and carts to carry fuel to the fire that blazed night and day. That fire, reflected by polished bronze mirrors, was said to shine more than 30 miles out to sea. To sailors, it was salvation. To scholars, it was science. To poets, it was proof that humanity could command even light itself. For centuries it burned, weathering earthquakes and storms. Fishermen swore they could see it shimmer even through the thickest fog, a promise of safe harbor. And yet, as with all wonders, time grew jealous. Earthquakes in the 10th and 14th centuries finally broke its bones. The marble stones fell into the sea, and for hundreds of years, divers brought up fragments from the waves, smooth, white, and heavy with silence. Today, beneath the harbor waters of Alexandria, archaeologists have found the fallen columns and statues, sleeping among the sand and coral. Some say its flame still burns, invisible but unending, in the memory of every ship that ever found its way home. The sea hushes now. The night deepens. And somewhere, not far to the north, another giant once stood, a bronze god of the harbor, proud and gleaming, greeting the dawn with open arms. Let us go to Rhodes. The waves will take us there by moonlight. The sea has turned to silver under the moon. The air smells faintly of olive oil and bronze. You can hear, softly, the ring of hammers and the call of gulls. Rhodes, in the 3rd century BC, is a place of trade, music, and sunlight. The harbor bustles with merchants from Cyprus, Crete, and Egypt. Ships creak against their moorings, sails snapping gently in the wind. And at the water's edge, rising higher than any temple, stands a statue so immense it defies belief. The Colossus of Rhodes. Built to honor Helios, the sun god, it was the pride of the Rhodians, who had survived a siege and wished to thank their patron deity for victory. The sculptor, Chares of Lindos, labored for 12 years, pouring bronze into molds the size of houses. The statue stood over 100 feet tall, about the height of the Statue of Liberty's torch today. Imagine the light at dawn, the rising sun gilding the bronze body, the shadows stretching across the sea. Fishermen would pause, heads bowed, as the first rays touched Helios's crown. Travelers arriving from afar described the statue as alive, the god's face serene, his stance unshakable. And yet, as ever, the earth had other plans. Just 56 years after it was built, an earthquake struck. The Colossus cracked at the knees and fell. The sound must have been unimaginable. Bronze thunder rolling across the harbor, echoes crashing against the cliffs. The people of Rhodes were devastated. The Oracle of Delphi, in her mysterious wisdom, told them not to rebuild, that the god himself had fallen by his own will. So for nearly 900 years, the ruins lay there, the broken pieces enormous as houses. Tourists still came to see them, walking among the twisted limbs of bronze, marveling at how even fallen gods could inspire awe. In 654 CE, when Arab forces captured the island, the remains were finally sold for scrap, a merchant supposedly melting the metal down to carry it away on 900 camels. The number, like the story, may be myth, but it feels right somehow, like a parable about the weight of beauty. And yet, the spirit of Helios never truly left. Today, when the sun rises over the harbor of Rhodes, its reflection dances on the water just where the statue once stood, a golden shimmer, brief and eternal. The sea sighs. The waves roll on. We have seen fire and marble, love and loss, gods and kings, and yet one wonder remains, the oldest and most steadfast of all. A wall of stone built not to honor gods, but to keep men out. Let us turn our gaze now eastward, toward the deserts of Mesopotamia and the long shadow of Babylon, where our story began. The final wonder awaits. The night air here tastes of heat and dust, of faraway incense and slow-burning oil. We are back where it all began, Babylon, the city of dreams and contradictions, where ambition built towers and gods build patience. Even in ruins, Babylon humbles. You can feel it in the silence of the plain. The ghostly echo of its vanished walls, said once to have shimmered blue as lapis lazuli under the blazing Mesopotamian sun. The ancient historian Herodotus, never one to resist exaggeration, claimed they were so wide that chariots could race upon them, side by side. He spoke of massive bronze gates and towers that gleamed for miles, of walls that encircled a city teeming with gardens, palaces, temples, and laughter. Most of that, we know now, was myth. But the truth, as ever, is no less astonishing. The walls were indeed vast, miles long, built of baked brick and bitumen, rising high enough to intimidate any invader. They were both fortress and statement, declaring to the world that Babylon was eternal. Inside, life thrummed with intensity, merchants calling through the market, priests murmuring prayers to Ishtar, soldiers resting in the shade. And above it all, always, the hum of heat and dust. When the Persian king Cyrus took Babylon in 539 BC, he did not destroy the walls, he simply walked through the gates, said to have been opened by the city's own priests. Babylon, for all its strength, had grown weary. Later kings tried to restore it, Darius, Alexander the Great, but the city seemed cursed to crumble from within. Its river silted, its people scattered, its bricks stolen for newer cities that forgot its name. And yet, when archaeologists dig in modern-day Iraq, they still find the marks of those walls, fired bricks stamped with the name of Nebuchadnezzar II, the king who made Babylon glorious. They hold them gently, brushing away sand that has waited 2,500 years, and for a moment, they feel the pulse of a city that once believed itself immortal. The walls no longer rise. But if you stand at sunset where they once stood, and the horizon glows that impossible Babylonian gold, you can almost hear the murmured laughter of the markets, the distant harp music, the crackle of torches along parapets. A city that outshone the sky, and for a little while succeeded. Now, as we leave Babylon once more, let us look back, not at one wonder, but all of them. For their stories, though scattered, share a thread. And that thread, like history itself, winds gently onward, shimmering through time's long twilight. The night grows softer now. Our ship drifts quietly through mist, no longer tied to place or time. The sea beneath us feels endless, like thought itself. The stars above are cool and far away. Let's take a moment to breathe. We've walked among pyramids and palaces, gods and queens, temples that reached for heaven and statues that wept in fire. Each wonder different, yet each born from the same small, fierce spark, the human refusal to be forgotten. Consider the builders of the Great Pyramid, sweating under the desert sun, their hands calloused and cracked, yet steady. Or the sculptor of Zeus, chiseling ivory into serenity. Or the masons of Halicarnassus, setting stones for love rather than empire. Each, in their own way, whispered the same thing. Remember us. They built in stone what we now build in story. And perhaps that's the real eighth wonder, memory itself. The thread connecting them all isn't just architecture or wealth, or even ambition. It's longing. The wish to outlast time, to hold on to beauty before it slips away. That's why every wonder fell. Not because of fire or war or earthquakes, but because the world moved on, and their purpose was fulfilled. For every wonder that crumbled, another rose somewhere else. The Parthenon gleamed after Babylon faded. The cathedrals of Europe rose when Artemis's temple was dust. Even now, in the hum of cities, the lights we build to pierce the dark are just our newest lighthouses. Perhaps that's why they still haunt us, not as ruins, but as reflections. They remind us that beauty and loss are the same story told in two voices. The air around us feels thicker now, full of drifting echoes. A marble column here, a broken statue there. The wonders seem to rise faintly around us, overlapping like a dream of stone and moonlight. And through them all, the thread of human hope glows faintly, golden and unbroken. But our journey through ancient light is not over yet. For as these wonders fade into legend, something else begins, an age of rediscovery, when old dust stirs again, and curious hands dig for the past. Let's follow that feeling, into the age of explorers, scholars, and dreamers who went searching for what was lost. And in their lantern light, we'll find not only the ruins, but the truth behind their silence. It is the late 18th century, and the world is stirring from a long sleep. The age of empires has given way to the age of curiosity. Scholars, soldiers, and artists wander the deserts and ruins with notebooks, sketches, and the occasional sense of awe. The old world, long buried, begins to breathe again. Imagine it, a caravan of explorers trudging through Egyptian dunes under a pale morning sky. The air tastes of dust and possibility. Somewhere ahead, half buried in sand, lies a shape that catches the light, the tip of a pyramid, or the head of a sphinx. Men kneel and brush gently at the stone. The wind whispers across their backs. After thousands of years, Egypt begins to remember itself. In Mesopotamia, too, strange mounds draw attention, ziggurats swallowed by centuries of sand. In Greece and Turkey, peasants plow fields and find marble heads, pieces of temples, the ghosts of gods. Even in faraway museums, whispers spread, the seven wonders. The phrase returns like a spell, half forgotten yet instantly familiar. Scholars begin to ask, what were they really? Where did they stand? Some doubt they ever existed at all. Others swear they'll find proof. And so begins the great romance of archaeology, not yet science, but something more poetic, more human, the desire to meet the ancients halfway. The first to search for the mausoleum at Halicarnassus arrives in the 1850s. He finds fragments of carved horses, shattered reliefs that once adorned its base. In Ephesus, they find the remains of Artemis's temple, the same stones Herostratus once set aflame. In Egypt, the Great Pyramid gives up secrets to anyone patient enough to crawl through its narrow veins of stone. Even Babylon yields hints of its old grandeur, bricks stamped with royal names, fragments of blue glaze, the faint outline of walls that once framed the world. What fascinates the explorers most is not the scale of the ruins, though that, too, is humbling, but the feeling of recognition. The sense that humanity has been here before, asking the same questions, building the same dreams. Every discovery is both revelation and loss. For each unearthed statue, thousands more lie waiting. But it doesn't matter. The wonders no longer need to stand. It is enough that we remember where they stood. The desert sighs. The wind changes. And among the explorers, a new kind of figure emerges, part poet, part scientist, the antiquarian. Let's meet them next. If the ancients built the wonders, it was the antiquarians who taught them to speak again. Picture a man in a sun hat and long coat, his pockets filled with brushes and ink pens. His handwriting is meticulous, his manners old-fashioned. He treats every broken pot and crumbling stone like a sacred text. His eyes are kind, tired, and quietly thrilled. He is not here to conquer, only to listen. These men, and a few remarkable women, of the 18th and 19th centuries traveled not in armies but in notebooks. They mapped what others ignored: ruined columns, buried cities, ancient graffiti scrawled by builders long forgotten. Some came from England, others from France, Germany, or the Ottoman world. Their language may have differed, but their longing was the same: to piece together the puzzle of time. They walked among the fallen statues of Rhodes, the dust-choked ruins of Halicarnassus, the lonely marsh where the temple of Artemis once shimmered like moonlight. Each fragment they lifted told a story, though never a complete one. They weren't always right, of course. They guessed. They romanticized. They let their hearts outrun their facts. But perhaps that was necessary. The imagination had to fill in what time erased. One of them, standing before the buried base of the Great Pyramid, once wrote, "We do not uncover the past. We only awaken it." And that is what the antiquarians did. They woke the old world gently, with brushes and patience, until even the sand seemed to sigh with recognition. Their work changed everything. The seven wonders were no longer myths from dusty Greek scrolls. They became real, measurable, touchable, and therefore, somehow, even more miraculous. But as they brushed away centuries of silence, something else began to stir, a quieter wonder. Not the monuments themselves, but the realization that humanity's greatest creations were fragile, transient, and utterly human. A chipped column. A faded relief. A single name carved into brick by a mason who never knew what history would call him. That realization, that we are the same, became the new wonder. And so, as the 19th century gave way to the modern age, the story of the seven wonders became something gentler, more wistful. They ceased to be about power and became about memory. The night around us grows cooler now. The lamps of the antiquarians flicker and fade. In their place, a new light dawns, brighter, impatient, mechanical. The age of archaeology has arrived, and with it, the hum of machines and the hunger to measure everything. But even science, when quiet enough, still dreams. Let us follow it, into the new century, where the dust of old empires gives way to glass cases, photographs, and a whole new kind of wonder. The dawn of the 20th century arrived with a kind of orderly excitement. The world was changing, faster, louder, brighter. Trains roared across continents, telegraphs clicked through the night, and the past, it seemed, could finally be measured with precision. Archaeology had grown up. Gone were the days of top hats and romantic guesswork. In their place came notebooks filled with grid lines, stratigraphic sketches, and numbers written in clean pencil strokes. What had once been exploration was now science. And yet, beneath the method, there remained the old magic. Picture the early morning light over Giza. The pyramids are bathed in gold, the sand cool beneath the boots of a team of excavators. They sip their tea quietly as the first shadows fall into the trenches. Cameras, large and boxy, wait beside tripods. Every photograph, every line drawn, is an act of resurrection. Nearby, a young archaeologist leans over a carved stone fragment, just a corner of a relief from some long-collapsed temple. He brushes away the dust, holds it to the light, and sees the faint curve of a goddess's hand. His heart beats faster. It's as if time itself just blinked. Across the Mediterranean, in Turkey, others uncover more of the mausoleum. In Iraq, the ruins of Babylon slowly emerge, brick by brick, the layers of centuries peeled back. At Ephesus, marble columns rise again, reassembled like bones finding their way back into a body. The archaeologists speak softly among themselves. They measure, catalog, photograph. But beneath their calm, there's all. Each stone feels alive. For the first time, the seven wonders are not just stories. They're coordinates, artifacts, blueprints of human daring. And yet, with discovery comes a kind of melancholy. The ruins, once buried and dreamlike, now sit behind ropes and placards. They are studied, photographed, contained. Some feel the wonder has diminished, traded for data, for footnotes. But perhaps that's unfair. Science does not kill magic, it preserves it in another form. Because, in the quiet moments between measurements, when the wind moves through the ruins and the archaeologists pause to breathe, something ancient still stirs. The same feeling that touched the builders, the antiquarians, the poets, the awareness that all this effort, this precision, this reverence, is a love letter to time. And from those measured ruins, a new vision begins to grow. The seven wonders are not only things to find, but ideas to dream of again. Let's follow that thought, gently, into the world of imagination, where painters, writers, and storytellers rebuild what time destroyed. The century turns, and the ruins become inspiration. It's the early 1900s, and in the smoky glow of gas lamps, artists and scholars gather to talk about the seven wonders as if they were old friends. Some imagine them rising once more, not in stone, but on paper and canvas. A painter in Paris, his studio cluttered with sketches and fading sunlight, recreates the hanging gardens. He paints terrace walls dripping with green, fountains sparkling like glass. In his version, the air is cool, the sky soft and endless. It is a vision no archaeologist could confirm, yet everyone feels it must be true. In London, a writer describes the lighthouse of Alexandria as a lantern of eternity, glowing through centuries of fog. In Rome, an architect draws plans for a modern city inspired by Babylon, complete with gates of glazed blue tile and golden lions. The wonders, once lost, bloom again in imagination. Even cinema joins in. In the 1920s and 30s, films portray Cleopatra's palace, the Colossus straddling the harbor, the Temple of Artemis bathed in firelight. The imagery may be wrong, anachronistic, romanticized, but the feeling is right. Humanity is still reaching for what it once built. And as the modern age accelerates, electric light, flight, skyscrapers, the seven wonders begin to look like mirrors. The Great Pyramid becomes a symbol of endurance in an age obsessed with progress. The lighthouse becomes a metaphor for science, guiding humanity through darkness. The Colossus, fallen and reborn in imagination, becomes the statue in New York Harbor, another sunlit figure greeting travelers from the sea. We stopped building temples to gods, and started building monuments to ourselves, but the longing behind them never changed. Even now, as the century deepens, we name new wonders: the Eiffel Tower, the Panama Canal, the Taj Mahal, the Great Wall. It's as if every age cannot help but crown its own miracles. And in each of them, the echo remains. Stone, steel, glass, it doesn't matter. What matters is the same old heartbeat beneath it all, the human wish to make something that lasts, something that says, "I was here." The paintings fade, the books close, the lights of the early modern world hum softly into the night. But the feeling remains, lingering like incense in the air. And from this quiet glow, we begin to wonder something new, not what the seven wonders were, but why they were. It's a gentler question, the kind you ask before sleep. And it's the one we'll follow next. If you listen closely to the ruins, you can almost hear it. Not the clatter of chisels or the cries of workers, but a quieter sound. A heartbeat, perhaps. It's the rhythm of human longing, that ancient desire to make something that outlives us. Every wonder, from the Great Pyramid to the Lighthouse of Alexandria, began not as stone but as yearning. Think of it, men and women standing beneath a vast sky, knowing their lives were brief, their names fragile as dust. And so they dreamed in granite, marble, and gold. They built because words fade, but stone, for a while at least, remembers. Perhaps Khufu, standing on the desert plateau before the first block was laid, thought not of immortality, but of peace, a resting place that would hold him beyond decay. Perhaps Artemisia, raising the mausoleum for her lost husband, built not a monument to power, but to love. In every wonder there is an ache, a yearning to reach beyond mortality. And yet time humbles everything. The gods change, the empires fall, the marble cracks. What remains is not the monument, but the impulse behind it, the quiet human wish to matter. It's the same impulse that drives the artist with a brush, the writer with a pen, the builder with a hammer. The same spirit that makes a child carve initials into bark. We build because we fear forgetting. We build because, for a fleeting moment, creation makes us infinite. So perhaps, the seven wonders were never meant to last forever. Perhaps their true purpose was simply to remind us of this, that beauty, even if it falls, was worth making. And as we walk among the ruins, that thought follows us like a gentle shadow. It carries us onward, to the next reflection, the lessons the stones still whisper when the world grows quiet. Even broken, the wonders still teach. Not loudly, not in grand speeches, but in the hush of wind over sand, the murmur of the sea against old marble, the silence of temples that no longer pray. The lesson is patience. Stone moves slowly. It does not rush to please. It knows that time is not an enemy, but a sculptor. When we stand before the Pyramid of Khufu, we are standing in the presence of endurance itself. Its edges are worn, its surface stripped, yet it remains. A mountain made by hands that trusted in centuries. From Babylon, though no garden blooms, we learn hope, the belief that paradise can be built even in a desert. From the lighthouse, we learn guidance, a flame kept alive through storms, shining for those still on their way. From the temple of Artemis, devotion. From the statue of Zeus, the artistry of belief. From the mausoleum, love made monumental. From the colossus, courage. And from their destruction, humility. Because in the end, no matter how grand the structure, the earth will reclaim it. The sea will wash it smooth. And yet we keep building. We cannot help ourselves. It is our nature, to create, to destroy, to rebuild, to dream again. The seven wonders remind us that every civilization, every person, is a flicker in the vast darkness of time, but even a flicker can illuminate the ages. The historian, standing in the ruins, smiles softly at this. Perhaps the ancients, too, understood. Perhaps that's why they built with such grace. And as we leave the crumbled stones behind, we carry their quiet wisdom with us. That to build is to love the world enough to leave a mark upon it. And that love, not stone, is what truly endures. The night deepens. The sand cools. We turn, at last, toward the final stretch of our journey, the slow, wistful reflection on what remains, and what it all means for those who still dream beneath the same stars. There's a quiet argument among historians, a playful, harmless one. If there were a true eighth wonder of the world, what would it be? Some say it's the Great Wall, others the Taj Mahal, others still, the Internet or the Voyager probe sailing through the dark. But I've come to think the real eighth wonder is something far less visible: memory. Because what survives when marble falls and empires fade is not the monument itself, but the memory of it, the way people remember, imagine, or even misremember. Memory is elastic. It reshapes what was once stone into something softer, something the heart can hold. Take the Hanging Gardens, for example. They may never have existed as Herodotus described, and yet we can all see them, can't we? Lush terraces rising from the desert, dripping with water and moonlight. That image, born from ink and longing, has lasted longer than any brick ever could. Memory, unlike stone, belongs to everyone. It is passed through stories, songs, and quiet wonder. A grandmother telling a child about the pyramids, a teacher showing slides of the Colossus, a traveler standing before a broken column and whispering, "Imagine what this must have been." In those moments, we rebuild the past, not in dust, but in imagination. And that, perhaps, was the ancients' truest achievement. They did not build only for their gods or their rulers. They built for the human mind, for its boundless capacity to remember and dream. Because as long as we remember, the wonders live. They stand again, bright, immense, eternal, within the gentle architecture of thought. Memory is the wonder that outlasts them all. And as we walk onward, carrying these remembered glories through the fading light, another question stirs. If memory is the eighth wonder, then what do dreams make of them? Night falls at last over the ancient world. The air is still. The stars hang low in gold above the Mediterranean. Somewhere, beneath the soft hiss of the sea, the ruins sleep. And in that sleep they dream. The Colossus dreams of standing tall again, his bronze shoulders catching the sunrise. The lighthouse dreams of its fire rekindled, guiding ghostly ships home through mist. The temple of Artemis dreams of moonlight spilling across marble and song. Even the broken stones of Babylon dream of green vines climbing once more. And as they dream, so do we. Perhaps that's why humanity keeps telling these stories, because in sleep, we rebuild what time has undone. We walk the causeways of the old world, lanterns in hand, visiting each ruin as though paying respects to old friends. There's a tenderness in it. Dreams forgive what history forgets. In them, every fallen block is lifted. Every shattered statue stands again. Cleopatra's palace glows anew, the library of Alexandria hums with light, and the hanging gardens drip with moonlit dew. Even the builders themselves appear, dusty, laughing, resting their tools to look upon what they've made. They don't speak, they don't need to. The dream is enough. When you wake, the vision fades, but not completely. Something remains, gentle as dust on your fingertips, the feeling of having touched a world both lost and eternal. And perhaps that's the truest wonder of all, that even asleep, humanity still builds. Not with stone, but with imagination. Not on earth, but in the quiet vastness of the mind. The ruins sleep, and we sleep with them, dreaming each other back to life. And from that shared dream, we'll rise soon, for dawn is nearing. But first, 2 more steps remain in our journey, the softest of them all, the farewell to the ancient world, and the awakening from its golden dream. There is a kind of silence that belongs only to endings. It's not the hush of loss, nor the pause of uncertainty. It's a silence that hums with gratitude. The ancient world has spoken, and now it rests again beneath its layers of sand and story. We stand at the edge of a golden shoreline, the Aegean Sea breathing quietly in and out. The stars are fading, not disappearing, just retreating into morning. In the distance, a fisherman's lamp winks like a farewell gesture to the night. Around us, the memories of the 7 wonders linger, faint, shimmering, like the afterimage of candlelight behind closed eyes. We can still see the Great Pyramid against the paling dawn, a shape older than memory itself. We can still imagine the hanging gardens, misted and green, their terraces glistening in an imagined sunrise. The lighthouse still flickers faintly, though its stones have long since scattered to the sea. The Colossus stretches in dream, the temple of Artemis breathes a final hymn, and the mausoleum glows with the dim warmth of devotion long fulfilled. It's time to say goodbye. But the ancients would tell us that nothing ever truly ends, it simply changes its form. The gods became stories. The stories became ruins. The ruins became whispers. And now, those whispers become this, a quiet story told before sleep, carried by the soft rhythm of a human voice. History has a tender way of looping back on itself. We, the living, become the keepers of the dead, and in remembering them, we make them live again. So we bow our heads, not in sorrow, but in thanks. For the builders, for the dreamers, for the dust that once dared to rise toward heaven. As we turn away from the past, the light changes. The night yields to a slow, honey-colored dawn. And we step into it, carrying 7 silent miracles within our hearts, reminders that even in ruin, there is beauty, and in endings, there is peace. And now, listener, softly, gently, we wake. The sands fade. The temples blur. The air of ancient Alexandria grows thin and dissolves into your quiet room. The hum of the present returns, the faint rustle of blankets, the pulse of your own breathing, the world as it is, waiting patiently for you. History withdraws, like a tide at dusk, leaving behind small treasures. A glint of marble, a memory of music, the echo of a dream. You've walked through 3,000 years tonight, from the deserts of Giza to the harbors of Rhodes, from myth to ruin, and back again. You've watched the wonders rise and fall, and rise once more in imagination. And perhaps now, as sleep begins to fold around you, you understand something the ancients did too. That time is not a straight road, but a circle, and within it, every story, every ruin, every dream, returns. The wonders are gone, and yet they are here, not in stone, but in you. In your curiosity, your awe, your quiet wish to see and understand. Close your eyes, and the ruins glow again, faint, gold, eternal. The pyramids shimmer in the distance. The sea murmurs near Alexandria. The gardens sway softly in the night wind. All of history breathes, slow and steady, with you. And so, with one last sigh, we let the ancient world rest. The fires go out, the stars fade into dawn, and the story sleeps. Good night, traveler of time. You've been to the edge of memory and back, and all is well.